is quoted. Um, I think another part of which became very stark was in both these universities, many students were illegally detained. They were tortured. Some of them were tortured. Some of them were stripped even. And in both these universities, there was denial of timely medical aid for students who had suffered grievous injuries. Some of them had suffered grievous injuries, such as one student has permanently been blinded because of the police action, inaction, I'd rather say. One student has lost an arm, has had to undergo an amputation because a tear gas shell actually broke out in his arm. One student has gone through multiple fractures. So, in all of these cases as well, there was absolute denial of timely medical aid. The police made sure of that. In AMU specifically, what happened also was um, that there was the police forces even attacked the ambulance drivers who were taking students to the hospital, which was not seen in Jamia, but here the police actually started attacking those vehicles, and the drivers also started beating them up using lathis. Big event related to Jamia was that there were students who were protesting outside the campus. The police entered using force inside the campus, and then the students who were not at all part of the protest, even they got attacked and beaten up. Which is not at all to say that, and make myself very clear here, which is not at all to say that the students protesting outside should be attacked in any particular way. But I'd like to say this, to the extent of which the violence was carried out, its students who had nothing to do with the protest, who were sitting and studying in the library, were also attacked. The mosque of the institution was attacked inside JMI campus. The imam of the mosque was also attacked, who had nothing to do with the protest, who was leading prayers at that point of time. I think one very specific thing about this violence, when we look at it, and as an outsider also, when one tries to analyze it, is that since even at the time of emergency, this kind of force has actually never been used against students. Here, the manner, that is the documentary evidence of different kinds of video format of the news reports, and one can see very clearly that here the forces that did come in into these institutions recognized those students as enemies. Sorry. So this is a very stark difference into any kind of previous attack that may have happened in the past, which has never been of such a nature, as it played out in Jamia and AMU. I will move on to a little bit to institutional responses. The NHRC has made observations regarding the violence in both these institutions. The first one being that in Jamia, the students filed several complaints to the NHRC regarding the violence that was carried out. And sorry, and NHRC responded to that. In AMU, it was because of the Allahabad High Court order that the NHRC stepped in. In both these institutions, the NHRC investigations was led by SSP Manzil Saini, who is actually, I think what is important to note here is that this SSP, who is of UP IPS cadre, actually has a bad record of human rights violations. She led both these NHRC investigations. Second of all, I think what is important is that in both these places, Delhi Police and UP Police, the individuals who were there from Delhi Police and UP Police were much more senior to SSP Manzil Saini. So the fact that a much junior officer who has a bad track record in human rights violations already, which is publicly known, and who herself is from UP Kader, was asked to investigate into these two institutions. So one can see the biasness of this entire procedure. Second of all, the NHRC, in the case of both the institutions, it's almost as if they discarded the student testimonies, or did not take into account several documentary evidences which are already there, and the student themselves have collected, student themselves have um, shown or shared on social media and spoken about. It's almost as if they discarded that entire narrative, and they did not look at the detailed student testimonies or even public records of videographic evidence. In Jamia, especially, there was a lot of public record of videographic evidence of students attacking, police attacking students who were reading, who were studying in the library. But the NHRC does not look into any of these observations. What they do is they somehow the kind of language also which they use is somehow that they justify the kind of police violence by stating that, it was avoidable, that these attacks on the library or these attacks could be avoided, but it does not really show any contempt for what has happened. On the other side, it briefly looks at compensation, to monetary compensation to students. It does not look at any kind of action towards police officials who actually carried this out. Another thing, important thing I'd like to state here is that the police, there is actually, in like 1 year, we are sitting 1 year from these brutal attacks on students, there has not been a single FIR which has been lodged against any police official regarding the AMU and Jamia attack. And even the NHRC is actually saying that we should look at the, we should have an inquiry on these police officials, but it does not state that there should be an FIR which should be lodged against the police officials who carried out these attacks. I will move a little bit on how the report also looks at, and through all of the analysis of student testimonies and other evidences which are present in uh, public platforms and through personal testimonies. It also concludes, the report concludes that this kind of police brutality on protesters actually constitutes cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment, which is CIDT, and it can be used as a form of torture. It can be understood to understand that this is a form of torture. And I'll move little bit on use of force in these institutions, which little bit I've spoken about earlier. But in more detail, when one tries to understand this legally, is that there is actually, in India, there is no law which prohibits police to enter an educational institute. And as of date, we do not have any guidelines on that, but there are several high court judgments which have been pronounced, which say that you have to take the permission from the, which clearly state that you have to take permission from the university administration, which was not the case in both AMU and Jamia. And another important aspect to this is that regarding armed forces, regarding RAF officials joining in and carrying out this violence, I mean, several provisions under CRPC state that the police has to disperse the crowd using whatever means available at that point of time, which has to be reasonable, which have to be proportionate. But none of those means were used at all. And even to actually have anybody from the armed forces to enter a campus like this or to attack anywhere any protesting individual, even if it's not a university campus, you have to take prior permissions. But none of that was followed. All of those things were violated, and the RF and the police entered at once without any prior permission, and they did not use other means to disperse the crowd, which could be much more peaceful in nature. They immediately used force and absolute disproportionate action to quell the protests. I would speak a little bit about the women protesters as well. In Jamia, especially, women protesters took a lead role since 13th actually to protest against CEA. Um, on the 15th of December, women students faced a lot of attack on their bodies. They were dragged, they were beaten by lathis. They faced a lot of physical violence at the hands of male officials. Following to that, on 10th February 2020, I'm sorry, um, the students had, Jamia students had planned a march till the parliament, I believe. And what happened there that the Delhi police was aware that this march was planned by students. So they already deployed a lot of police force, including women officials at that point of time, because they understood by then that the women were playing a key role in the protest. So they also deployed a lot of women police officials. And on 10th February, the incidents, the report looks at specifically on the violence of 10th February, which was directed specifically at Muslim women. Muslim women's hijabs and burqas were pulled off. There were a lot of religious communal remarks that the police made. The police sexually assaulted a lot of these women. The women suffered grievous injuries on the incident, which was followed on 10th February. I would like to also little bit um, um, touch upon that how what is a lesser known topic actually that gets discussed around this entire use of force. It is a psychological impact on students. The CH team collected a lot of testimonies, and the thing was that at that time, the testimonies were largely collected in terms of the physical violence that the students went through. So, while speaking about the physical violence, the students also spoke about the psychological impact that this kind of violence has happened on their university campus. Um, the students shared that they have their minds are completely scarred after the incident that has happened, even though there were students who have not suffered physical injuries on their bodies, but mentally, like just to see that their friends, their colleagues, their campus was brutalized in this fashion. They have gone through a lot of anxiety, fear. Some students have mentioned clearly that they have been absolutely traumatized by what has happened. Um, in fact, in the last 1 year, the kind of continuous criminalization that has happened of students of AMU and Jamia, the kind of media trial, in fact, that has happened, and continuously referring to students as terrorists who are planning something against the country, who are masterminds to violence. A lot of these kind of a lot of these kind of terminology that has been used, it has really led to a kind of social isolation of these students, which they have clearly stated in their testimonies that a lot of people in their neighborhoods have distanced themselves from these students who were protesting, who were constitutionally.
बाद में लूंगा थोड़ा बहुत दिन
Sorry.
मैंने किया मैंने स्कोर किया 81% आया 81% आया लाइकिंग
Sorry, should I continue? Hello.
प्लीज कंटिन्यू
Okay, okay. Yeah. So this kind of continuous criminalization actually can also be compared to in a similar way what has been carried out in America in terms of African American individuals, and the kind of continuous police action which say as an individual I may not be suffering that police action inaction on my body, but it will still have a much more bigger impact on me mentally if I belong to the same identity. So a lot of research also suggests that the what Black Americans go through now is a lot of stress, trauma, and anxiety and hopelessness. Hopelessness becomes a very big thing, that in terms of they do not have much hope in the justice systems when the police itself acts in a certain way. So I feel, um, I mean, many of us here have gone to university spaces, we have occupied university spaces. So for us to even think for a minute that this is the kind of attack that was carried out on a safe space such as a university, so it will have deep impact on my mental health. I think largely I'd like to stop here. Any questions which anybody would have?
Yeah, thank you so much. There is one, if you like to respond, like how does what did the NHRC observe regarding violence? If you have any specific to mention about that NHRC's observation on the entire violence of Jamia Millia and AMU.
Okay, okay. So, see, NHRC took, as I mentioned, that in both the findings of AMU and Jamia, the NHRC discarded the version of students. That became the primary thing. They discarded the version of the students. They attributed responsibility to the students for the violence which was carried out. And also in their findings, they stated that the use of force was justified and necessary. In doing this, NHRC completely ignored the evidence which is already present, as I was mentioning, in terms of student testimonies which were present across social media. There was a lot of videographic evidence of the police violence. They ignored all of that completely and held students responsible for this violence. Another aspect to the NHRC findings was that they they also denied students their agency. I think that was a very important part because they have stated something on the lines of that students have been misguided by other individuals. They are not mentioning which individuals are these, but they are saying students have been misguided by other community leaders who are present outside campus, and we have to look more deeply into that. So when they address things like this, they are denying students their agency to protest. They are denying students their political thinking or political thought. They are in complete denial that students could themselves understand these laws and protest against them. Another thing is that NHRC also ordered like a very tokenistic payment of compensation to the injured students at both these universities, in Jamia and in AMU. And only very briefly it acknowledges that what happened at Jamia was avoidable, but it does not mention the same for AMU. And the NHRC completely kind of misses this opportunity to address this kind of impunity, which could have been addressed in its observations. They fail to do that. And I was also saying that how this NHRC investigation was entirely led by SSP Manzil Seni, who has a very bad, openly bad track record in human rights violations herself. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, is there anything like to bring on unheard or unread something that why the strong use force used force used in the context of violence when the students were saying that the force used by the
Sorry,
police
sorry, you're not
when
very audible actually. Can you speak little loudly?
yeah, I'm saying that in the context of violence, uh, did you find that people were complaining that the force used in Jamia Millia and in certain parts of AMU campuses were very brutal and which is not at all noticed in general many of the writings. So in the context of fact finding reports and various reports, how do you see those violence being recognized by the state agencies, or they have still been rejecting those claims that violence was not used at all?
No, so other state agencies, I have not very deeply looked at. I mean, what has played out in courts, I will not be able to comment on that. But largely, the public understanding of this and what NHRC is doing is to try and say that basically try and deny the kind of the extent applied onto students. They are not taking any accountability, and they are operating with complete impunity to go to this extent and carry out this. They have denied students the agency, they have denied students their narratives of what happened. And I would not want to be able to comment on what has happened in courts. However, in Allahabad High Court, actually gave a good order in terms of AMU. It became rather good order, positive order in terms of which was also not expected by students. They ordered good compensation for around 7 students who suffered grievous injuries. But that has not come in from Delhi High Court in terms of the violence at Jamia. Yeah.
Uh, there was one question which was coming about the main findings. Do we also have? Is there anything which we can say these are the main findings and carry forward those finding points in terms of finding the justice for the victims, or these kind of incidents not take place in many of the institutions in
I think at this point where we are placed in the country, it is very difficult to say that this kind of violence or that kind of violence will not happen again. And that I'm very apologetic about, but I'll also be very real about it, because the kind of criminalization that has and otherization that has happened of Indian Muslims since 2014 specifically, which has been more systemic in nature. It's not as though it was not happening before 2014. And the way our institutions are operating, the way our courts are operating, the way our police officials are operating, I think for me to comment that this kind of violence will not happen in the future would be something I would not want to do. But I think there is absolute importance in sticking to and stating continuously in whatever space we occupy, and the space that we are occupying right now even, to continuously say the narrative of the students, to continuously speak the narrative of the victims of the pogrom in Delhi, to continuously state the narratives in multiple of these spaces, I feel is very important. Is to just kind of place the truth all of the time. I think in all the spaces that we are occupying, they may be very small. It may seem very hopeless that we are speaking amongst each other all the time, but I still feel that to continuously place that narrative at the center might just help us get somewhere. But I would not say that there is no possibility of this kind of police action, because it's very difficult to state that right now. Yeah, but one obviously hopes that nothing of this sort is repeated again and the students get their dues. That their administration, for the students, that their administration also supports them, supports their narratives.
Yeah, there's one question which is coming up, like in the context of narratives, we are talking that students'
I'm sorry,
narrative.
you're not audible actually.
Am I not audible?
I'm not able to hear.
Mike at
Mike at
yeah.
yeah.
So the idea that the kind of narrative students and then victims in the institution have, and then the narrative built around that was that something similar to many incidents in the past. No? It is not new. New was only that it happening in institutions like this, uh, which is being discussed. So, how do you see that the students? I mean, in terms of your findings and maybe visits to the students and their discussions, did you find something very different? The students have fear to go back to their institutions, which is their own. People generally, a student community own the institutions until they leave themselves. So, do you find that the students' perception are getting changed because of these incidents, and what they say exactly in your report? Your mic, can you, yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
please.
So the report is not touching upon that aspect as much, but I would like to comment that in the last 1 year of several people interacting with students from Jamia and AMU, actually, it has been the opposite. From what we said, there is absolute bravery and absolute courage that all of these students have shown in I mean, a lot of us would imagine that it is a lot of fear that is in their heads now. They have occupied a lot of spaces. They are openly speaking again and again about the kind of violence and about the kind of use of force and about the criminalization that is going on till today, 1 year later, and the lack of accountability that the state took for this kind of action. And I think that is something that a lot of us from outside the space can actually take a lot of lesson from, because they have really not lost their grit at all. They are still continuing the struggle and fighting in many many ways and occupying a lot of spaces to speak their narrative.
Yeah, the one last question, if I can put
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah, sure.
that there is one question by Humera that what can we see as citizens to publicize this kind of events? Can we play a role in creating awareness in the public? It's like a suggestion by Humera.
Yeah, I think as people, as civil society, what we were also speaking about earlier, just holding this kind of conversation is also important. And I think like one very big thing what got lost is because of the pandemic, we kind of lost the physical spaces that we had occupied in many many ways. And that losing that should not mean that we don't resist in other ways. So I think just holding this conversation itself is resistance and speaking and trying to occupy the truth and the narrative, which is against a lot of effort that the right wing is putting in occupying. They have a very strategic way of occupying narratives. They are using various website portals, various portals on Twitter to occupy and make their narrative the main truth. So I think just even doing something like this is trying to occupy space and not let that happen.
Yeah, I mean, what I was thinking that you know there has been one discussion, because certain reason that one is the nomenclature, the name used by or name of the university. It has also identity in these era. It was not that much visible or significant, but Jamia Islam or Aligarh Muslim University. People doesn't understand about the nature of the university, its
Hmm.
stature, and then whether it is a public university open to everyone, and that
Yes.
is perhaps one area the Godi media or media use that gray area and then publicize that Jamia Millia would mean that this is one community
Yeah.
ghetto,
Yeah.
and you could see these narratives are built much more easily because you already have created that ambience in the
Yeah.
society.
Hmm.
So how do
Yeah.
we understand,
Sorry, how do you understand the?
this scenario and reflect upon that? How do, as a citizen, in a democratic system, deconstruct those narratives which is also used because of its name? When when media would say about JNU, it was something else, but when it is Jamia Millia, because it has a different significant narrative which is communalizing one group of people
Hmm. Hmm.
who study teaches in a university. So did you find something to deconstruct, any tool, any ways, and no, and that could be discussed more broadly?
Yeah, well, I think what you're raising is very important. And about these two institutions, these kind of ideas of certain individuals going to these institutions and trying to have this kind of anti-national image to these institutions. This is not just something which is post 2014. It has been part of this culture and idea of these universities much before also. I think it has formed the public idea. I come from UP, and things that people say about Aligarh Muslim University have something that I have seen for a very long time, and very derogatory remarks that people make. And I think this
Yeah.
is a discussion, more like a discussion. The report is not touching on these aspects. it principally looked at the violence, but I mean, this is something that I think if other people also who are attending would want to add to this. I mean, what are the ways in which we could deconstruct these things? We could how we could communicate that whatever these ideas, preconceived notions are about these universities and how wrong they are. And I think it's actually what you're raising is very important, because I think some of these ideas also contributed to why a lot of people did not openly speak about the violence in these two universities. Like the public, so to say, I mean, one thing is the police and the state and a lot of these things. The larger public also did not uh, come out in the kind of contempt that they should have come out regarding the police violence. And I think what you are saying is has had a very big role to play, because you already have these preconceived notions about these universities and the people who attend these universities, that you kind of justified it in your head that okay, then this kind of police violence is also okay. So I feel this is a very important part actually that you're raising. I'm wondering if other people also have something to add to this, if what are the ways in which we can deconstruct some of these ideas.
Yes, this also comes into inherently in our mind because
Yeah.
uh, incidentally, fortunately I'm also one of the student pass out from Jamia Millia.
Hmm.
For example, I would have my association with many of the other universities like Delhi University, JNU. So it has multiple identity to me, for example. So you
Hmm.
can shift your and people who have been there, not as a Muslim from Muslim identity, but everybody, they carry these violence in their mind and memory as very unfortunate.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I find many of them don't come up publicly, don't discuss, don't join these kind of discussions.
Hmm.
I don't understand why this happened because they have a feeling in a close in group they would discuss about the unfortunate should not have happened, but
Hmm.
they speak. People have spoken. People are speaking. But if you see the
Hmm.
proportion of students in terms of their background, it's very diverse in Jamia Millia, for example. And
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
them come up, the narratives which is being created will be demystified. It
Hmm.
may
Hmm.
not be space in public domain, but I
Yeah.
don't know why it's not happening.
Yeah. 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 And I think in the last 1 year, what has also happened is that with this kind of absolute continuous criminalization, a lot of students have also taken a back seat into speaking that openly about the police violence. And it is not that they are not fighting in different ways. It is also due to the complete impunity which the state has in framing all of these students in with absolutely fabricated charges against these students, and they have lost a lot. I mean, as I was mentioning, the fact finding also looks at how a lot of them have lost their research material which they have worked on over for years. So what is the kind of compensation that one imagines for that? I mean, that is not something which any of these institutions are looking at. But
Yeah.
they have lost years of their education and their research also, apart from losing the space. This has a safe space. Yeah. So I think that is also one factor which is adding. I mean, this kind of continuous criminalization in media, especially, which is also adding little bit to the fear of not speaking so much. Yeah.
Yeah. That's true. In fact, that's true because and it's really uh, I would say that courageous anyone who is doing either fact finding study or meeting students and victims, talking about their stories, writing about it. This also demands a lot of courage in present
Yeah.
scenario. So in that context, like for example, your report and then sharing is definitely we are going to have much more benefit because what
Mm.
you just said that even these debates are very important. These
Yeah.
discussions are important,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
these are going to be continuous debate. So
Yeah.
I think I would invite Laik if he has to add up something
Yeah.
into this. Laik, are you there?
Yes, yes, sir. Please tell me.
Yeah, I wanted to add something. कुछ आप ऐड करना चाहेंगे बात?
Sorry.
Yeah, like some.
Yeah, yes, sir. Tell me, please.
No, I'm saying you want to add something. कुछ आप कहना चाहेंगे
No,
और
no, we will conclude with this.
okay.
Okay.
So you can.
It's really very good, Aman, and it was very. I mean, to me, it is always learning and learning in the sense that it gives you a lot of strength and facts. And somebody who has a background of rationality in terms of legal understanding and law background will definitely give you more strength about the issues. So,
Yeah.
I believe that these discussions should continue,
Yeah.
and it's been there, and we pray that you have much more strength to work into these issues as well.
Thank
Thank you so much on behalf of Democracy Dialogue and entire team. We look forward for much more associations from you in
Yeah.
future.
Same. Thank you so much for having me here, and thanks to everyone who's joined. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Take care.
Khuda Hafiz. Thank you. Yeah.
Hafiz.